In India's huge affirmative action system, there's this concept called the creamy layer. Basically, a line where you're seen as successful enough that you don't need the support anymore. But what happens when that line gets drawn for communities that have faced centuries of really deep social injustice? Well, that is the incredibly complex debate we are unpacking today. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the basics of social justice and reservation. Then, we'll get into what this creamy layer thing is all about. We'll explore the arguments for it, and then the really powerful counter-argument against it. We're even going to look at how one state, Tamil Nadu, does things completely differently. And it all leads to the big question. What's the real path to fairness? All right, so to really get a grip on this whole controversy, we've got to go back to the very beginning. Why does the system even exist in the first place? At its heart, reservation is an affirmative action system that's literally baked into India's constitution. The goal? Well, it's pretty straightforward, but also profound. To try and correct centuries of historical injustice. And, level the playing field for communities like the scheduled castes, or SCs, and scheduled tribes, the STs, who were systematically held back for so long.
Okay, so now let's introduce the big complication, the thing that's right at the heart of this entire debate, the creamy layer.
So this term, creamy layer, it refers to the more well-off members within a disadvantaged community. The idea is that once a family hits a certain level of wealth and social standing, maybe they don't need the leg up from reservation anymore. This whole principle came out of a Supreme Court case back in 1992, and right now it's used to exclude some members of the other backward classes, or OBCs, from getting those quota benefits.
And this, right here, brings us to the core of the issue. Should this exact same idea, this economic cutoff, be applied to the scheduled castes? This is the massive question that's being debated all across the country right now. So let's play this out. What's the case for exclusion? Why do people believe that the wealthiest members of the SC community should be moved out of the reservation system? Well, proponents will tell you it's really just a matter of fairness. They believe that without this kind of exclusion, a small, already advanced elite within the SC community ends up grabbing most of the benefits, and that leaves the truly marginalized folks behind. The goal, they say, is to make sure that this ladder of opportunity actually reaches the people on the absolute lowest rungs. They argue that's the only way to get to what they call real equality. But there's an incredibly powerful counter-argument, and it says that this whole concept of a creamy layer, especially when you apply it to scheduled castes, is basically a myth. And this is where that counter-argument really gets its teeth, from some stark economic numbers. Get this. A staggering 83.55% of all scheduled caste households in India are surviving on less than 5,000 rupees a month. To put that into perspective for you, that's about $60 a month. And this next number just drives the point home. If you take that income limit that's already used for the OBC creamy layer, which is about 66,000 rupees a month, a tiny, tiny fraction, just 0.5% of all SC households in the entire country actually cross that line. So you have to ask the question, if the well-off group is that small, can you even call it a layer? And this is the absolute crucial point here. For scheduled castes, the disadvantage was never just about money. It's rooted in the historical stigma of untouchability. The argument is that this social discrimination sticks with you, no matter how much is in your bank account. Even upwardly mobile Dalits still face exclusion when they're trying to find housing or get jobs or just in their social lives. Because in this context, wealth simply does not erase caste. So how does all this theory play out on the ground? Well, the state of Tamil Nadu is a fascinating case study because they've pretty much resisted this whole creamy layer idea from the get-go. So Tamil Nadu has one of the highest reservation quotas in the entire country, a whopping 69%. And it's constitutionally protected. This policy is really deeply rooted in the state's long history of social justice movements, which have always prioritized fixing caste-based inequality. But here's the kicker. Even after decades of this high level of reservation, major gaps are still there. The literacy rate for scheduled castes still lags behind the state average. And this persistent gap is exactly why the state argues against any income-based cutoffs. They basically believe the job of fixing that historical disadvantage isn't even close to being done. And this gets us to Tamil Nadu's core belief on this. The state government doesn't see reservation as some kind of poverty alleviation program for individuals. No, they see it as a structural solution for the entire community to fix the historical oppression of caste. And from that point of view, excluding people based on their income just misses the entire point. So where does that leave us? Well, it brings us right to the central tension at the heart of this whole debate. It's a tension between two really different ideas of what justice actually looks like. On one side, you have the argument for exclusion. It's focused on economic fairness inside the disadvantaged community and wants to make sure the benefits get to the people who need them most. But on the other side, you have the argument against exclusion, and it says that caste stigma is this unique, non-economic problem, and that using income as a ruler fundamentally misunderstands what the real discrimination is all about. And that really leaves us with the big, unresolved question at the heart of India's journey towards equity. If making more money can't, by itself, erase centuries of social hierarchy, then what is the right formula for justice? It's an incredibly complex challenge. There are no easy answers, and it's one that really defines the difficult path to achieving true social equality.